All right, let's dive into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a truly fascinating mythological concept, the 7 stages of the soul. We're going to look at a deeply structured framework that maps out exactly where we stand in our own spiritual journeys. I seriously can't wait to get into this with you guys.
But you know, it all starts with a surprisingly simple question, one that actually reveals the exact spiritual stage of your soul right now. Imagine you're walking in the woods and you just stumble upon a pile of sweet, untouched berries. What would you do? Seriously, keep your honest answer in the back of your mind as we go through this, because by the end, you'll know exactly what it says about you. Here's our roadmap for climbing this spiritual ladder today. First, the fall of Satyuga. Second, the 3 Nishanda stages. Third, the 3 Pritha stages. Fourth, the 7th stage, Rishi. Fifth, attaining ultimate godhood. And finally, number 6, cleansing the soul's mirror.
Okay, Section 1, the fall of Satyuga, and why the world needed a system of checks and balances.
So this entire framework actually comes to us through a mythological story told by the immortal Lord Hanuman. And Hanuman explains that these 7 stages of the soul, they weren't just created for some, high-level philosophical debate. No, they were created to literally stop the end of the world.
See, the core problem was attachment. Back in the era of Satyuga, there was absolutely no concept of mine. Bodies and possessions, they were shared freely by all souls. You could occupy a body, fulfill a desire, and just move on. But that golden era ended when a soul named Vina straight up refused to vacate a particularly handsome body. His attachment sparked a huge, violent fight, and because his karma wasn't pure enough to heal it, the body actually died. This was the exact moment the gods realized, uh-oh, the world is going to destroy itself without a system of checks and balances.
Which brings us to Section 2, the 3 Nishada stages. These are souls fully trapped in the illusion of space-time.
To save the world from this brand new plague of attachment, living beings were categorized. And to explain how this works, Rishi Jamadagni took his wife, Devi Renuka, into the jungle to observe a simple pile of sweet berries. The crucial thing to watch here is how different entities react to the exact same pile of berries. It starts with the Nishadas. These are the souls totally trapped in illusion. And there are 3 subcategories of Nishadas perfectly mapped to their highest tool of operation. Let's break them down one by one.
First up, we have the Deha Nishada. So a monkey approached the berries and immediately ate one. No smelling it, no checking for poison, it just acted. Living purely at the level of the body and acting strictly on those bodily urges, that makes you a Deha Nishada.
Next, a squirrel approached the pile. But the squirrel didn't just bite right into the berry. It smelled it first to see if it was edible. It used its mind, its basic curiosity and assessment, as its highest tool, elevating it just slightly to a Mana Nishada.
Then a child came along. Now this kid knew that stealing was technically wrong, but looking at that massive pile of sweet berries, his intellect kicked in to justify his craving. He rationalized, hey, taking just a handful won't hurt anyone, right? He used his intellect to churn out arguments in favor of stealing, making him a Viveka Nisada. And according to the source text, a massive majority of humans today fall right here, using our intelligence mostly just to justify whatever our body or mind wants.
All right, Section 3, the 3 Prishu stages, souls partially trapped in illusions.
Let's see how this builds for those with a higher level of awakening. The first step here is the Samskar Prithu. Another child saw those exact same berries and desperately wanted them. But unlike the first kid, his inner conditioning, his deeply ingrained rules, or samskara, taught by wise elders, stopped him from even considering stealing. His desires were totally contained by his conditioning.
Moving up the ladder, we meet the Chit Prithu. A woman carrying firewood walked past the berries. She consciously witnessed her own physical attraction to them. Her mind's curiosity, her intellect trying to justify taking them, and her samskara shutting the whole thing down. She observed all of this happening inside herself from a literal third-person perspective. Awakened to the level of consciousness, she just smiled and walked away.
Finally, an awakened man approached. He didn't even look at the berries as food. He knelt down and touched the earth like it was a musical instrument. He perceived the berries not as physical objects, but as the fluid of space resting on the strings of time. This is the Atma Prithu, a person awakened to the level of the soul, seeing completely through the physical illusion.
Moving into Section 4, the 7th stage, the Rishi, assistance to the gods.
So Devi Renuka totally understood those first 6 stages, but she realized one was missing from the story. The 7th stage, the Rishi.
I mean, her own husband was a rishi, so what would his reaction to the berries be? Well, Rishi Jamadagni explained that a rishi doesn't even belong in those previous categories. Why? Because their soul has already achieved moksha, or liberation. They aren't trapped by illusions at all. They stay in the world purely to act as assistants to the gods. A rishi already knows the divine purpose behind the berries and acts only to fulfill that specific purpose, totally free from personal desire.
To test Devi Renuka's own evolution on this 7-stage ladder, he took her to a magical river and gave her the test of the clay pots, and this brilliantly illustrates the soul's capacity to contain desires, which is represented here by water. Check this out. A samskara pruthu follows ready-made rules, so they fill a pre-baked pot. A chit pruthu fills it while ignoring magical distractions from yakshas. An atma pruthu makes their own rules, so they bake their own pot. But a rishi? Because they are entirely aligned with the divine purpose, they can carry water in an unbaked clay pot, completely supported by divine forces. Pretty wild, right?
Section 5. Attaining Ultimate Godhood. Evolving beyond the 7th stage.
Over the years, Devi Renuka worked tirelessly on her spiritual growth. She easily passed these tests, eventually carrying water in unbaked pots with the help of apsaras. But one day, she stopped carrying a pot entirely. Seeing her without one, Rishi Jamadagni panicked. He initially feared she had fallen all the way back down to a nishada. But he was absolutely stunned to realize what had actually happened. She hadn't fallen, she had transcended. Devi Renuka had gained the power to create the river itself with a single glance. She was no longer just an assistant to the gods, she had ascended to ultimate godhood.
To initiate her into this ultimate state, Lord Vishnu himself appeared. He separated her royal princess head from her body and replaced it with a nishada head. He declared that she would serve as the ultimate goddess for everyone. As he said, the prithus will worship her prithu form, the nishadas will worship her nishada form. Basically, she became completely accessible to souls at every single stage of evolution.
And that brings us to Section 6, Cleansing the Soul's Mirror. What is your soul reflecting right now?
We've climbed the 7 stages of the soul. But why does this matter to you, and what should you take away from this explainer today? Well, the source text leaves us with a very direct warning. It says, your soul is like a mirror, which has gathered dust from the outside world. If you're sitting there right now feeling a sense of pride because you quote-unquote gained something, or if your ego feels inflated by learning this complex mythological framework, you've completely missed the mark. You've actually just put another layer of dust on your soul's mirror.
Because spiritual progress isn't about accumulating facts in your intellect. Remember our Viveka Nishada? True progress is about shedding those illusions. You can only see God when these dusty layers are removed. The ultimate test of moving closer to the divine isn't how much you know, it's whether you actually feel lighter as those illusions tumble out of you.
So I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder as you continue your own journey, whether you find yourself staring at a pile of sweet berries or just, navigating your daily life. Has this explainer removed a layer of dust from your mirror, or did it just add a new one?